There are 32 teams that make up the National Football League. Among them, certain franchises have experienced multiple championships, countless winning records, and heaps of Hall of Fame players, all of which has marked their organizations as one of the greatest institutions in American sports. However, what about the other side of the coin? Certain teams have been drowning in sadness and irrelevance for decades. These teams have had more losing seasons than they can count, little to no playoff appearances, and near zero trophies to display. Out of the 32 current NFL franchises, which one of them is the worst? This is my search for the worst NFL sports team. Now, examining each team individually would be a waste of time. Some teams have been way too good for way too long to ever be considered the worst. I mean, is it even worth asking if the Patriots or Steelers could be the worst team ever? Obviously not. They've won multiple championships and have housed some of the best football players ever. To shrink the sample size down, let's go over some criteria. Any team that has won 3 or more Super Bowls is immediately off the table. Even if all 3 victories were long ago, any franchise that has won 3 championships must have been the best team in football at least 3 separate times. Any team that has been in 4 or more Super Bowls and won a minimum of 1 of them will not be considered. This allows us to cross off teams such as the Dolphins, who have not yet won 3 Super Bowls, but have won 2, and hold on to the only perfect NFL season. They clearly are not the worst football team. This criteria also allows us to consider interesting cases like the Buffalo Bills, who have been to 4 Super Bowls yet lost all of them. Are they the worst NFL franchise? I don't think so, but their unique story is at least worth giving a second look, especially since their 4 Super Bowl losses were consecutive. The team must have at least 30 years of history. What I would consider to be the worst team is a team that has repeatedly and consistently let their fans down for several generations. A team founded only 20 years ago, for example, the Texans, while a pretty horrible team, has not tortured their fan base nearly enough to be considered the worst. With this criteria established, let's see which teams are left. Okay, I think this is a good starting list. Let's move to part 2, the chopping block. Here's where things get more interesting. To cut this list down, let's separate the generally bad teams from the absolutely terrible. The Seahawks have been to 3 Super Bowls and won 1, so they don't really belong here. The Buccaneers did begin their NFL tenure with 26 consecutive losses, but they also have a history intertwined with the GOAT Tom Brady and 2 championship wins. So let's remove them. The Vikings and Bills both are 0-4 in Super Bowl games, which is absolutely gut-wrenching to their fan bases. But I'm certain Lions, Browns, and Bears fans would easily trade for 4 L's. So let's remove them. The Bengals are similar with 3 losses, and with a bright future ahead in Burrow, let's take them off as well. The Saints aren't contenders right now, but after 15 years of watching Drew Brees and a Super Bowl win under their belt, they don't really belong. The Jaguars, let's be honest, are pretty terrible, and they've never been to a Super Bowl, but they were founded quite recently in 1995, which is not nearly enough suffering or historical data to be considered. And let's remove the 1993 founded Panthers for the same reason. This has shrunk down the sample size to 8 remaining teams, but to be honest, at this point, I was lost on how to proceed. There were still 8 teams left, all of which are worthy contenders. In order to shrink the list down even more, I decided a combination of 3 factors would determine which teams I consider for being the worst. Factor 1. Conference championships. All of these teams practically never play in the championship game, but some of these teams have had multiple appearances in their conference's championship. Factor 2. Playoff record. Sure, a team making the playoffs all the time might seem like a good thing, but what's the point if they're always losing in the first round? Factor 3. Overall win-loss record. There's no better way to see how historically good or bad a team has actually been than by looking at their overall win-loss record. With all these factors considered, I ranked all the remaining 8 teams for the 3 different categories, and I took their average ranks and sorted them. What I got was not all that surprising. The Titans and Chargers were towards the top of the list, which made sense considering they've had their moments, but just haven't been able to ever fully put it together. So let's take them away. But hang on a second. Why are the Browns towards the top? Don't they suck? The NFL has been around for a long time. The first season began all the way back in 1920, and by joining in 1944, the Browns are considered one of the legacy teams in the NFL. 3 teams still remaining on the list, the Lions, Bears, and the Browns, have won NFL championships, but all of them were prior to the Super Bowl era. The Super Bowl era has not been kind to any of these teams. The Browns and the Lions are the only teams to finish a season 0-16, and the Bears are the only NFL franchise without a 4,000-yard passer. If we only look at the Super Bowl era, then likely one of these teams would be the winner. But that doesn't seem fair. The Super Bowl era might be the most popular, but it only captures half the picture. So if we want to take in the whole landscape, which I do, then all of history must be included, and the Browns, Lions, and Bears have to be removed from contention. There's now 3 teams left, and they're all pretty terrible. But how can we choose who truly is the worst? Let's make a case for each of them and then see what the findings say. The New York Jets are pretty much a football misery story. Born in 1959, their story is only one peak. When a decade after joining, Broadway Joe Namath wagged his finger and stunned the Colts in Super Bowl III. Since then, they've been a conveyor belt of calamity. They've trotted out more than 30 starting quarterbacks, have been nationally embarrassed through instances such as the butt fumble, and even when they coaxed legendary veterans such as Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers into the green and white, it ended in tragedy. The ledger is brutal. A .437 winning percentage, the 6th worst in league history, just 14 playoff trips, fewer than the Jaguars, and a 14-year postseason exile stretching from the 2010 AFC Championship loss to right now. They finished above 500 exactly once since 2011, changed coaches like light bulbs, and watched division rivals stack Lombardi trophies while their own trophy case just gathers dust. If depression fielded an NFL team, it would wear Gotham green and cue up the JETS chant. But to find a team that might be even more miserable of late, all you need to do is head a little south to Atlanta. There are bad losses, and then there's being up 28-3 in the Super Bowl and still finding a way to lose. That's the Atlanta Falcons legacy in a nutshell. A franchise that didn't just fumble a championship, they turned it into a cultural punchline. Founded in 1966, the Falcons have made the playoffs just 14 times in nearly 60 years and have only 4 division titles to show for it. They've had generational talents like Michael Vick and Matt Ryan, but even those eras ended in disappointment or scandal. And while getting to the Super Bowl in 2016 seemed like the culmination of decades of frustration, what followed was a collapse so catastrophic that it broke the laws of football probability. The Falcons had a 99.8% chance to win with under 3 minutes left in the third quarter. Yet somehow, some way, Tom Brady dragged the Patriots back into the game, tied it, and won in overtime, cementing Atlanta's place in sports infamy. Since then, the Falcons have not recovered. They've cycled through coaches, lost close games in spectacularly stupid ways, and watched their fan base age in dog years. If the NFL kept a stat for emotional damage, Atlanta would be at the top of the league. But there's still one more team that is worse. A team that has been so bad throughout its history that they are often ignored by everyone else. And this team has the honor, or rather the disgrace, of being the clear pick as the worst NFL team, the Arizona Cardinals. If you took every tragic element from the worst football teams, the playoff drought of the Jets, the Super Bowl collapse of the Falcons, and the terrible single-season records of the Browns, and blended them into one franchise, you get the Arizona Cardinals. Founded in 1920 as the Chicago Cardinals, they're the oldest continuously run professional football team in America, and somehow have the resume of a team that just showed up last week. In over a century, they've won exactly one championship, way back in 1947, during an era with only 10 teams and leather helmets. Since then, they went winless in 1943, didn't make the playoffs once in the entire 1950s, and didn't win a playoff game until 1998. Their lone Super Bowl appearance in 2008 was the closest they ever came to glory, until the final minutes when Santonio Holmes toe-tapped his way into NFL history and shoved the Cardinals way back into the shadows. Since then, the team has continued its cycle of mediocrity. Brief flickers of hope, followed by long stretches of irrelevance. They've even had Hall of Fame caliber talents like Larry Fitzgerald just waste away in the desert. And with every blown lead, draft bust, or failed rebuild, the Cardinals just keep proving that longevity does not equal greatness. They're the NFL's greatest argument for a fresh start, or a time machine. And they are the clear pick as the worst team in NFL history. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and consider watching this next video, which YouTube thinks you're really going to enjoy.